Hi, and welcome to this presentation about what's new in Flowable. My name is Tijs Rademakers, and I'm joined by my colleague and good friend Joram. So let's get into the presentation. So we will start with a very short introduction and then immediately go into the main use cases of Flowable, so case management and process orchestration. And then we will actually quite do a deep dive in connectors and everything that we have in store for that. And we will end with a what's next overview of what's coming with Flowable. What's really important is that we also have a Q&A at the end. So really feel free to ask any questions on the chat, and we will make sure to answer all your questions later on. So a very short introduction. So I'm Tijs Rademakers. I'm the VP of Engineering at Flowable, leading the product team. Been with Flowable for more than 8 years and in BPM software development already for more than 15 years. And we also have Joram, like I mentioned. Can you introduce yourself, Joram?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Tijs, for having me. My name is Joram Barrez, hailing from Belgium. I'm also working many years for Flowable and in the industry for quite a while. Before Flowable, I worked for Fresco on Activity, and before Activity, I worked on JBPM at Red Hat. So yeah, there's a lot of years of BPM and automation experience here today. We also have Philip Risafov behind the scenes. He's ready to take on all of your questions, so make sure to give him lots of work. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen, you should have a little panel where you can ask him all the questions. So make sure that he doesn't fall asleep. All right, Tijs, off to you.
Thank you. So yeah, let's move first into the really main use cases for case management and process orchestration. So if we look at case management, it's really about knowledge workers. It's about forms, it's about data, documents, decisions, connectivity with other applications, with other services. And it's really to support the knowledge worker to do their work in the best way possible. And typically, this is considered like high-value work. So it's not something that can be fully automated, but still needs somebody with very specific knowledge, very specific domain knowledge, for example, or knowledge about performing a specific task or taking specific decisions. And that's where Flowable can help you. In addition to that, we also have a lot of support for process orchestration. So that's really more about high throughput, high volume, a lot of transactions, and it can be straight through, but there can also be humans in the loop. So there can be manual tasks during the process execution. And there's interaction with getting data from services, from applications, sending data to other services and applications. So a lot about orchestration of these things. And if we then look a bit more into case management, then how do we support that specifically with Flowable? So a very important aspect is that is dynamic execution. And that goes for a lot of the model types that we have in Flowable, like case models with our CMMN support. But we also have a lot of dynamic support with our service models, with our decision models and action models, and what's more. So it's all about dynamically supporting the knowledge workers with the tasks that they have on their plate and how to execute them in the order that they want to. It's not like a structured, predefined flow. There's also a lot of data included. So forms where you fill in data about your customers, about an account, about patients, stuff like that. There's events handling, connectivity, documents are often a very important part, and that's all integrated together. And that comes together also in a UI, which can be adapted to a lot of different use cases. So it's not a static UI, you can really configure it for your needs. If we then look at process orchestration, and there's also dynamic aspects to that. It can also be very structured, and then it's really just a couple of steps after each other, just following them up, going from task A to task B. but there can also be a lot of dynamic execution in there as well. And that's where Flowable really excels for these more dynamic and complex use cases. And that's where also the combination of CMMN and BPMN comes together quite nicely. And if you look at more highly complex use cases, it happens a lot in real life because exception paths often have a lot of possibilities. So you have the happy path in your execution, which is often quite structured and it's quite predefined. But for exception paths, a lot of logic is needed. And then layering your models into, for example, having a root case model and having several sub-process models is really important because it can really help you to structure the quite complex things that are happening into models that can be well understood. And that altogether then solves a quite complex case. And like we mentioned, it can be straight through, but there can also be manual or human steps involved as well. Flowable can support both cases.
Yeah, Tess, here I think the kind of thing I want to add, sorry to interrupt you, is that basically with Flowable, you are allowed to choose. Is that we don't force you into any kind of direction, is that we give you the tool set, the toolbox, and you pick out the hammers or the wrenches or whatever tool you need for the job at hand. And that's kind of, everything that we talk about today or everything you've seen in the past from us, that is really what we're about, right? So sorry to add that,
exactly.
but I thought it was important,
Yeah, very good. So yeah, when we talk about the CMMN and BPMN support that we have, together with all the other model types we have as well, then it's important to start with that CMMN is not equal to case management. Of course, as CMMN is very suitable to solve your case management requirements, but you can do a lot more with CMMN. And that's where we see the combination of CMMN and BPMN being really powerful for more complex process orchestration cases. And so you can really address the structured parts of your process orchestration with BPMN, and then the elements that require a bit more dynamic behavior, require event handling, that's solved within your case models. And the nice thing is that you then use the industry modeling standards to their best ability, right?
Yeah, I think that's, if I may add here, is that the word case management, I kind of, it's everybody knows what it means, but it doesn't kind of grasp what CMMN is all about, in my opinion, at least. When I think about case management, and this term has been there since I've been a young boy, which is quite a while ago now. You think about, you got a file, you got some stuff around that file and stuff basically updates, but that's just a very tiny kind of thing you can do with it. Is that what we see in reality with many of our customers is that the case becomes a container, a context for executing processes and contextualizing all of these processes and making them richer without having to resort to any kind of hacks or kind of weird ways to interconnect things. No, the case is there, gives you the context, gives you documents, persons, data, that's all interlinked, all at once. And that's basically, way more than just case management, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then another aspect which is really important in process orchestration is all the connectivity options and how to orchestrate your services in Flowable. And what we try to do in this slide is really to make clear that there's a lot of options with Flowable, starting with the service registry, where you can configure your HTTP and REST invocations, with the input-output definitions, the operations, all of this, security, authorization, authentication. But we also have the event registry, which focuses more on event handling, like JMS messages, Kafka messages, can be emails, can be AWS, SNS, SQS. So all these connectivity options you can already exploit with the service registry and event registry. And then we are adding more and more connectors as well, like the Salesforce connector, which is available, the SharePoint connector. And we are adding the ABI and SAP connector to this as well. And this will be a connector set which will be built upon more and more. And then we also have more options to customize the orchestration of your services as you want. So we have scripting support, we have Java support, of course, but also a very interesting pattern is the external worker pattern, where we are not pushing out to another service, but actually that service is pulling work from Flowable. So Flowable is waiting until a certain piece of work is completed, and you can then implement an external worker in any language as you want, JavaScript, Java, .NET, Python, or another language that connects to Flowable, pulls in the work that's available for the external worker and execute it, and then gives back the result to Flowable. So also a very interesting way to work with your services. And then a final thing that we are adding is the camel connectors, which we also dive into a bit later as well. So that brings even a wide range of additional options to Flowable, which, for example, FTP support, Google Drive support, Docker support, and a lot more that Camel provides.
Yeah, and just to mention is that the models here on this particular slide, I think they're not even half of the kind of models and the abstractions that we offer in reality, right? There's way more where this came from, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's then talk a bit about connectors. I mean, the word connector is, as it implies, you're connecting to something that is not on your side, right? And in the Flowable kind of world, that means you're connecting to an external service somewhere. There is logic running or there's data being exposed, but it's not on the Flowable kind of perimeter, right? A connector is multiple things for us. Taz talked about these models before. It's a combination of multiple models working together. And first and foremost, it's the service model. Now, the service model is really an encapsulation. It's an abstraction of the nitty-gritty, dirty details that you normally have to do to kind of interact with this particular service. You, as a service modeler, you're kind of hiding that complexity for your users. Besides that, you also have, that's really about kind of connecting to it, transporting, format, all of that. And besides that, you've got the data. The data is crucial because it explains how this service or what kind of data the service takes and what it produces. And that brings us to the last point of the slide, which is the most important thing. If you use a connector, you're focusing on the case and modeling, the case and process modeling side of things. You're wondering, okay, how do I kind of model this? How do I explain or implement this kind of pattern? But you're not worrying about, oh, I need to integrate with this server. What would be the kind of REST API to do that? Or is it GraphQL or what the format is? No, you just focus on what's important and let the connectors do the rest. And with the connectors that we ship out of the box, that means it's our job to do that. And as Taz was saying, we have the Salesforce and SharePoint connector. If you watched last year, the presentation from Taz last year, you would see that that was promised. That's in the product. You can already play with it. Salesforce, as it implies, you connect to all kind of Salesforce APIs. SharePoint has UI integration, meaning in Flowable work, you can pop up the kind of SharePoint UI, work with documents there. And what's right now in the pipeline is the ABI connector, and we'll talk about that later on. The AI connector, which we also dedicate a slide to in a couple of minutes. RPA, robotic process automation, SAP connector, and Camel. And we'll talk about many of those in the next couple of slides. So first and foremost is the AI connector. Now, if you've been following our kind of marketing channel, you know that we released very recently the early access release for the Flowable product line that contains the AI capabilities. We also did a webinar on that. If you haven't seen it yet, go and check it out. And I don't say that just because I also was in that webinar. But basically, the gist of what's in this current release is that you can generate a full app, meaning that you can say, hey, I want an app with a process that does this and this and this. And the AI service will then generate for you this BPMN or CMN model. It will generate the forms. It will generate services that might be included. And it will help you with building these things much faster than normal. Secondly, if you already have an app, you can have a conversation with the AI service to say, hey, I got this app, this context, basically all of these models that are in there, and I now want to generate a new process model, for example. Well, it's going to take that context, it's going to generate a new model for you in that app. So that's really much faster than before. Thirdly, and I like this one a lot, is the interaction with an AI service. As we said before, the service model is kind of an abstraction, encapsulation of complex logic. Well, if you take this into account with the AI context, then you're actually building that complex prompt or multiple prompts inside an abstraction for your end users and basically allowing them to interact with an AI service in a very kind of contained, secured way, right? Otherwise, if you would just expose it to the end user, that would be wild. This really allows you to constrain the power of the AI as you want to do it. And last but not least, we've got features with AI around documents, because a lot of processes cases uses documents, and it saves you a lot of time. You say, hey, this document that I have in my case, can you give me the kind of short summary of it, right? And it will give you that. Or you have a specific question and you ask the AI service that question. It will go into that document and actually get the data out. Means I don't have to read, or not as much in detail as I would read, that whole 30 pages document. Now I can just ask specific questions. And that's available today as an early access release. You could go to a website and follow the links there to get that. All right, let me go to the demo. So this is I'm only going to show one demo, one part of the features that I highlighted. It's basically the app creation, because I think that is just a really cool one. Well, they're actually all cool. But basically, this is the classic design environment. I'm going to press create. There's a new kind of tab here, which says AI. And basically, what I'm going to do is generate a process for me. And what I'm going to do, that handles customer onboarding, never type live, for a bank. Okay, here we go. That should be it. So what's happening now, there's a few things going on. We fire off a prompt to the AI service. The AI service is going to give us back a response, but that generally is not really, really good. We can't immediately use it. What we then do is we kind of inspect the result and go one by one, all the different steps in the process or case, and we kind of enhance them by firing off more prompts. And we're building up always more and more context and kind of refining it on the fly. And that's why, as you can see here, at this point, we've generated the app, we're generating the root models, and it's going off. And the thing is that when you're doing this demo is that you never know how long this is going to take, or you never know what kind of model it's going to come up with in the end, right? It can be something that just goes through a couple of user tasks if we give it this prompt, or it can just be a kind of service orchestration. Well, and it's now almost at the end. Here we go. Well, I decided today to do something simple for the demo. It's basically going to generate a process model, a couple of forms here, right? Let me just import this whole thing so you can see it. Here we go. Right. I mean, this is just a couple of user tasks. I tried this before earlier today, and basically they generated a couple of service tasks for me, but now I decided not to do that. Well, that's the thing with AI, you never know. But the cool thing is I have something now in my hands to start working, a skeleton of working out my ideas. And as you can see, it also generated forms, which, it takes quite a while to click all these things together. It's not per se rocket science, but in the end, it's going to take you quite some time to click all these things together and to kind of combine them to something sensible. And that's exactly what the AI service did for us, right? So again, this is just one of the features that are in the early access release, but more of that later on. All right, let's go back to the slides now. So a thing that is really cool with the AI service model kind of encapsulation is that you're hiding the prompt, but you're also getting something that is typed. And if you've been modeling any kind of case or kind of process in Flowable, you know that structure and typings are really important, or really help you to kind of build better models. And in this kind of AI service, that's exactly what you do. You pass in variables, you pass in variables into the prompt, and basically what you're doing is you're defining of the data that you get back, and you can immediately work with the structure. I didn't talk about that in the demo, but it also generated for me a data dictionary, and you can start playing around with these things, and you can go crazy. And as I always say, your imagination here is the limitation of what you can build.
And I think the great thing about this AI service model, like you say, it's really it can solve a lot of use cases, right? So it's not only that it can generate something, or it's really, you can leverage this capability as you need. And the nice thing is that you can also do it from forms, right? So not only from your case and process model execution, but actually directly from the user interaction, and then respond on something that the knowledge worker is using, and then using AI to help the knowledge worker take a decision or help them perform a certain task, right?
Yeah. I mean, imagination is your limitation here, but I want to really talk about this for the whole presentation. Is actually a slot dedicated to talk only about the AI thing. So if that is your thing, there is a talk by Roman and Jan a bit later today that you can follow, and they're going to talk about everything AI and more, right? So don't miss that. Also, there's a link to documentation there. If you go to flowable.com or documentation.flowable.com, you will immediately spot there's an that explains how to set this thing up, how to use it, what are the features, etc. So do check that out. All right, let's switch to the RPA connector now. RPA, robotic process automation. Basically, all the services in the world, there are so many, and not all of them have kind of public API connected to the internet. And that's where the kind of RPA products come in. Could be that you've got like an ancient kind of tool that is really important for your business. However, it has no public API, or it doesn't even have an API. That's exactly what this is for. So what we're doing with Flowable is actually a dual strategy, meaning that in the open source version with something called RPA framework, and in the enterprise, we'll integrate with the kind of market leader at the moment, which is UiPath, right? Both of them kind of do similar things conceptually. And I think the easiest is I've just kind of show that. So I think I'm going to go straight into the demo now. Oh, sorry. No, you're right, Des. I actually needed the thing is that Tijs is handling the slides, so I need to kind of give him visual cues, and you can see that we're techies. So the RPA connector, and this is very important, Tijs talked about it before, is using the external worker. An external worker is a very powerful mechanism for process and case execution, because what it does, it execution at that point where you are, and then hands it off to an external service. Now, from a Flowable point of view, you just go into a wait state, meaning there is no resource being consumed. Flowable is really not doing anything until that external worker executes the logic on whatever it's running. This can be any kind of language, of course, Java, Python, JavaScript, or whatever. And when it goes back to Flowable saying, hey, I'm done, here's my data, you can continue, and Flowable will continue. And basically, external workers work by pulling work or jobs, let's say, from a kind of topic. It works kind of like a message queuing idea. And now, Tess, I will go to the demo. All right. So what I did here is I don't have this live running. That's when we're doing this presentation. I don't like that things get taken over on my screen and on funny stuff happens. So what I did, I actually have a little movie that I want to show you. Again, you can have a look at the source code already for this. It's already on GitHub. What it's doing here is it's actually going and passing in some data into a classic work form, Flowable. So it's filling in some data, and I'll show you in a second where that data comes from. Classic process here. And what we have running on this particular machine is we have an Excel sheet running. And I'm going to pause here for a second because I want to explain this. What we have here is an Excel sheet, and on the terminal, you can see that there's actually a external worker client, specifically a framework, is running, and it's waiting for work to be ready. Now, of course, we just kicked off this process, so this external job should be there, and if all goes well, and obviously, because this is a movie, I know what's going to happen, right? There is the work, and it, as you can see here, the RPA tool takes over, fills in some things in Excel, magic happens, basically, and we now posting back, the RPA tool is posting back the information that we want from the Excel sheet to Flowable, to the Flowable process. And you can see it's now in my task shown on the screen. And if we see now in Flowable design, and I'm going to pause it again for a second here, if we see how that's being built, this is like a classic. See here, there's a job topic where the work will be put on. So this external worker will be just polling for, hey, do you have something for me? Do you have something for me? And then what you need to do, and this is where the passing of the data happens here, you're going to pass in all the kind of variables, the kind of parameters that the RPA task is expecting from Flowable, from the process. In a classic kind of, we have thousands of other places. We're passing in this data, and we're mapping out the data again here in the out mapping. We're mapping it out again to Flowable as a variable and work with that. So I think a really powerful mechanism to work with RPA kind of products. All right, let's get back to the slides.
Yeah, so maybe people noticed that the audio was breaking up a little bit.
sorry.
I think everything was really understandable, but just that it's not your connection. It could be the audio on Joram's side.
It's not my natural voice, this.
So let's move into another connector. So we are talking a lot about additional connectors, and it's important from a Flowable point of view to provide a lot of these kind of things out of the box so that it can really help you solve a lot of different use cases. So another one is the Abby connector. And what Abby does, it's a very big software vendor on the intelligent document processing space, so IDP. And what it does, it transforms unstructured documents into something structured. And that can be from simply scanning documents, letters that come in, to something that can be read by a computer, so just scanning text basically. But that's a bit old-fashioned. And what it can also really do is a PDF comes in, for example, and it takes out certain elements of that PDF document for you. And then you can continue with that structured data in your case and process. So like, for example, a bank account document or an invoice, for example, it can take certain parts of that, like the customer name, the invoice number, the invoice date, and stuff like that. And then you can use that in your case and process models to work with. And what Flowable has is you can work with an Abby task and then define which documents should be sent to Abby to get this structured data from Abby. And what's also really interesting is sometimes it's impossible for Abby to get this structured data out of a document because the document maybe is not very well readable or due to another exception case. And then there's a manual intervention which is possible. So Abby has the functionality to then solve that manually. And we integrated that directly into the Flowable UI. So you don't have to then navigate out of Flowable to Abby, but you can really do that all from one user interface. And then after making the correction, continue in your case and process model. And here again, we have another presentation about the Abby connector where we go into all the details, which is presented by Christopher Welsh and Bert. But yeah, as it's running at the same time as our presentation, you can watch that at a later moment when all the presentations are shared afterwards, and you can just watch that back.
I understand that presentation, obviously, and I'm not I'm biased.
So yeah, to add even more connectivity options, there's also something that's called iPaaS platforms. So they really focus on providing you with a rich set of connectivity options. And here again, like with the RPA connector, we take a dual strategy. So we will integrate with the market leader iPaaS platform. So there's MuleSoft, Anypoint, and others available there. But also on the open source side, we find it really important that we also do the same thing there. So there's a choice for you to go in the direction as you want. And for a long time, we had an Apache Camel integration already. And we are extending on that now to provide more connectivity options. And the way we are doing this is that we are using the Camel integration in our event registry. So it's another channel that's available in the event registry. So in this example, you can see that the Camel FTP connector starts a process, for example, pulling a certain folder in an FTP server. Then it's kicking off a new process instance and sending and receiving events from a RocketMQ connectivity, for example. And this is just one of the options, right? So it can be basically anything that Camel provides. And at the end, we send an event to create a Kubernetes cron job. And yeah, like I said, it's just an example, but it is all abstracted by our event registry, and all the connectivity is just available for you.
That's for my understanding. How is this running? Is it running standalone, or what? How do I have to imagine this?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So the nice thing is that we can support both. So you can run Camel standalone, and then, for example, connect over Kafka or JMS with Flowable. But you can also run it integrated within Flowable, so you don't even need a separate Camel server then. It's all part of Flowable. So also there, you have the option to go in the direction as you want.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, then a new thing that we added with our 3.16 release is plugins. And this is a way to bring connectors also as an option for your own organization to build connectors. So we integrate with our service model to define the connectivity there, and then you can define a plugin where that option is then available within design as a task. So you can then use it in your process and case models, but you can also export plugins and share it within your organization to other design environments. So it's really about reusability and sharing between teams or customers or partners, what we offer here.
I think that's an interesting angle, the kind of partner idea is that, and I'm talking now about real life examples where people have built custom connectors, custom services, and they want to kind of ship this to their own customer base, right? It could be product that they own themselves, or they build kind of things on top of Flowable. Well, they can package this as a plugin and kind of ship that to their own kind of users in a very easy, kind of nice way.
Yes. And then we talked a lot about more backend focused enhancements. So a lot about connectors, data, and how to connect your services. But we actually also made quite a big improvement on our UI side. So it always has been possible to create custom form components with Flowable, but the way you had to do it was quite cumbersome, and a lot of knowledge was needed. It was just not a nice experience. And we now really redesigned that way to build custom form components and to really make them easily available in design, so that you can create a form component, it becomes available in design, you can see a nice preview and stuff like that. So in addition to that, when you have included a custom form component in your design application, it's automatically packaged within your app. So as you publish it to your work environment, it automatically then becomes available for your form engine. So you don't have to do anything yourself anymore with front-end builds or something like that. It's just handled by Flowable that this is available both in design and in the work UI.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and here also, because there's a lot to talk about this topic, Orlando and Jorge will go into more details actually after our presentation. So definitely don't miss that presentation to learn about all the details there. Yeah, then we want to finish up a bit with looking ahead and what's next with Flowable. So one of the important parts is Flowable Cloud, which provides an efficient way to run Flowable. And it really makes it easy to quickly get started with Flowable, being it a shared environment where you are running your processes and cases on a database which is shared with multiple customers. So it's separated logically by having different tenants in the same database, which is a more cost-effective solution. Or it can be a fully dedicated cloud environment where you are running fully isolated with your own database, with your own service as well. So everything is possible there. And what we want to be better on is have better configuration support, so that if you have OAuth security for your services that you are connecting with, that you can do that easily, that you have an easy way to configure your users and groups, have an easy way to connect with SharePoint, Salesforce, or other connectors, so that it's just a smooth experience. Also important, because you can't deploy Java easily within such an environment, that there's a lot of scripting support where we want to go with serverless solutions like lambdas, functions, something like that. And what's important is this is in addition to our on-premise offering, and it's in no case replacing it. So that will still be a very big part of Flowable. But we just want to provide another way to run Flowable in an easy way for you. AI. So we talked about it already quite a bit, but we want to increase the support more and more. I think what we did now with the early access is a really good starting point, and it provides a lot of interesting ways to use AI within Flowable. But we want to explore more options to integrate AI for knowledge worker decision-making, guidance, based on the process and case data that is available. A lot of interesting stuff can be done there. More support in design to guide and help modelers. And it's all about simplifying the work. And we are, of course, very eager to get feedback from anyone. So if you want to try out the early access release, definitely get in touch with Flowable sales, and they will be happy to help you there.
Yeah, I think the important thing for us with AI is that we look at it as helping you. The AI is going to be there to advise you, to give insights, to get things fast. Would have to do it if you would do it manually, and that's really kind of how we go about it. Not replacing you, but basically really helping you and making your life easier and better.
Yeah. Yeah, and just because we are running a bit out of time, I will speed up a bit. And so another part is that we will be improving our modular productivity. So just make it easier in design to generate forms, generate other things based on the data structures that you have defined with data dictionary and data objects. Do more with reporting and validation of variable usage in your application, because that's a very important part, and provide more support for power users to just make it easy to work with design if you are using it day in, day out. And another important part is we have our Flowable engines. Since the beginning, of course, everything is built on top of that. And we will keep focusing on that as well. And so performance and efficiency of the engines is really key for us. CMMN as a standard, we find really important because it really can help you to solve the complex process orchestration and case management use cases. So we will be evangelizing that more and more. And we want to provide more validation and recommendation and metric support to identify any bottlenecks you might encounter. And there's a nice talk about that as well, Joram, right?
Yeah, it's a perfect segue to the most interesting talk of whole FlowFest, I would say. Slightly better than this one, maybe even a bit biased, because this is a presentation that I'm doing together with Valentin, together with Philip. I'm saying Valentin because I used to do a lot of webinars with Valentin, but it's Philip. And we're going to talk about performance and kind of metrics and all things around it. So don't miss it. And that being said, we're going to get in Philip now, not Valentin, Philip, for the Q&A section, and hopefully work. And yeah, let's go to the Q&A. Hey, Philip.
Hello, everyone. And yeah, thanks, Joram and Tijs, for the nice presentation. And first of all, apologies for the stream quality to everyone. We are working on checking why that happened. And there will be videos. The videos will be available after the FlowFest, where you can then watch them on YouTube. And now let's head to some questions. So first, let's go for the question from Sagar. and he's asking whether custom connectors are available in the early access version.
Do you want to take that, Tijs?
Yeah. So I think the mention of the early access version was quite specific, targeted at our AI release. So that's really all about the AI features that we have discussed and will be discussing in other talks. The custom connector, so that's more the plugin functionality plus the connectors that we are providing. So part of that is already available in 3.16. So you can already build plugins with service models in that version. There's also the Salesforce connector. There's the SharePoint connector in that version. And there will be more support coming in the 3.17 release, which comes out in December later this year. So yeah, I think hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, and to basically just a small input, because there was a similar question just came in from Anket. So basically the API connector will be available in the upcoming version, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then there is another question from Bharat Kumar that just came in, asking whether the 3.16 contains the Apache Camel enhancements.
So the Apache Camel changes that we have been discussing is coming in 3.17. So that's coming later this year. And yeah, so it's not in 3.16, but in the next version.
Yeah, thanks. Well, then I think we have a question from myself, one that I've prepared just while watching while listening on the talk.
Not too difficult, please.
Yeah, so I think it will be interesting to know for people how they can try out the new AI features and whether they can use any AI vendor or is it just like one AI vendor that they can.
No, yeah. So basically what we're doing there, well, first two parts of your question, right? First of all, you can download it after contacting your CSM. There's a couple of things you need to fill in with the AI stuff. But the other thing is, the technical part is more interesting for me at least, is that, yeah, you can swap out to pretty much any vendor, basically that is supported by the Spring AI stuff. Because as you know, we build on top of Spring Boot, we built all our AI stuff using the Spring AI stuff that's out there. If you're interested in that, we did a movie together with Josh Long a week or 2-3 ago. Basically, it's as simple as swapping out the properties from OpenAI, ChatGPT to Claude, for example, to Gemini, whatnot, all the supported ones, and then it just runs. Now, this is an abstraction, and there are things that, because this is, early days of Spring AI, that are better supported in OpenAI, that are better supported in Claude. But in general, the stuff that we offer, that is like using the common subset of what's available. Does that answer your question, Philip?
Yes, I think it answers the questions for myself and also for the audience as well.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.